Good day, brave hearts. And thanks for joining us. I'm here today with Terry, and we're going to talk about something that's so important, as you can see behind me, and it's called iodide. We're going to talk about what the difference is between infinite iodide and other iodides. We're going to talk about why every human being and even the fetus needs iodide every day. We're going to talk about how it's one of the most essential molecules in the human body, and how this molecule even helps when it comes to the immune system and keeping your cells in check. And let's not forget about our thyroid. Let's not forget about what happened. I think Terry can correct me, but around 1974, they got rid of a lot of the iodine out of products. And we saw an increase in thyroid problems and all the way to thyroid cancer. And I'm not saying that it's directly related to that, but what about all the weight gain? And what about all the metabolic problems that seem to come after 1974? I mean, if you were to take a look at a beach in around 1970, okay, you would actually, to even 1974, 1975, everybody was slim. I'm not saying it's the only reason. I'm saying that it does have some merit. And I'm going to see what Terry thinks about it, because what I know about iodine is maybe 1% of 1% of what he does. Terry, thanks for joining me on the show.
Always a pleasure to be with you, Daryl.
Thank you.
Interesting introduction. I thought today to focus on iodide, because you are correct. It's an extraordinary element, and very few of us know anything about it. And that is a problem. So a fun way to learn is, I guess, to go through some visual explanations of the science and where we sort of come from. When we look at ancient humans, when you look at the Chinese, they were actually consuming sea sponges. When you look at the ancient Greeks, they were consuming seaweed, and they also used it topically for sunburns, for example. The ancient Egyptians also were using seaweed for body wraps, and I'll get into why in a few minutes, but this is something that the ancient cultures were very aware of, that was coming out of the ocean, that was critical to our health on a daily basis. Now, unfortunately, like most ancient knowledge, it was lost. So the humans, essentially, we've gone through the dark ages where not only did man fight himself, but we were also fighting disease at an extraordinary level. And the plagues that have run through the human race over time have really had a devastating effect on us, from not only a health and perspective, but also our lives. And, we've sort of been witness to that lately. Now, the interesting thing in the 1800s, the medical truth was that bad drinking water caused goiter. And as chemistry evolved and the medical system has evolved, we can now start to discuss certain things that are really critical for us in our bodies. So if you'd like, I think a good place to start was iodine was actually discovered. Iodine was discovered in 1811 by one of Napoleon's chemists. And the interesting thing is that at that point is where the science really started, and then we came forward. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of a history of it. And now it's 200 years later, and iodine is the most studied element on our periodic table that we all grew up with in chemistry. Oddly enough, very few of us studied it in chemistry, knew anything about it, regardless of what point in chemistry. And unfortunately, that has gone into higher learning, where there's been very little education on iodine and the different species in our bodies and how important it is. Into the medical universities or into the nutritional universities, they're just unaware of this, oddly enough, and yet 200 years of medical research has been done. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. And today our focus is iodide. Now, Daryl, where I'd like to start, if it's okay with you, I'd like to sort of give a simple explanation of the ocean and the human body and how our interaction is with this special element. If that's okay from your perspective, we can actually start there.
I say start from the beginning, and that would be the beginning.
Okay. So the largest reservoir here's the interesting thing about the human body. Let me start with this fact that this is something that we've learned in 200 years, and we'll go through a few of those from a science perspective, because that's the easiest way to describe this versus anecdotal information. This is hard science. It's actually been done with clinical studies with humans. And our body, I believe, was genetically designed that we were meant to be near the ocean. And there's a lot of things that we need in our body, but iodine is one of the 25 crucial elements that we have to live. And very few of us know this, okay, at all, because it's not on any food supplement that we eat, on a supplemental label. It's not on anything that we consume. What the iodide content is there, and yet it's crucial for that to be ingested every day. So the interesting thing is the ocean is the largest reservoir of iodide in the world. And you have 1,000 tons every day that evaporates off the ocean. It interacts with our, our ozone layer, and then comes back down into the ocean. And that cycle is how the planet uses it in order to make sure that our environment is healthy for us to live in. Now, as a human, oddly enough, our body is loaded with iodide. It has to be, or we wouldn't be here. Similar to the ocean, all of the life, all of the plant life coming out of the ocean, all has iodide in it. So do humans. So this is a crucial element that we need. Now, if you go for a walk on the ocean, the interesting thing about our bodies as a crucial element that we need, we can talk about other vitamins and we can talk about other elements, for example, but our body is actually structured that we can take it in through inhalation, absorption, or ingestion. Those are the three forms that our body can actually scavenge it from the environment that's around us on a daily basis. So, it's interesting because if somebody says, well, you're a little low on vitamin C, you can't go and stand in the middle of an orchard and get enriched with vitamin C. Whereas if you go for a swim in the ocean, your body will absorb the iodide that's in the water, and it gets into your bloodstream, and your thyroid gets to use it. So I don't want to get too far in the explanation, but the fact is our bodies can absorb it. We can ingest it. We need to ingest it every day, and we need to ingest a certain minimum amount. And anything that we exceed beyond that, our bodies naturally excrete what it doesn't use every day. So iodide within our environment, we go for a walk on the ocean, we're breathing iodide-enriched air. It gets into our lungs, it gets into our bloodstream, our body starts to use it. You go for a swim in the ocean, we absorb it through our skin so that our thyroid gets to use it, it's in our bloodstream, and it's used at a cellular level. We ingest it. You eat a piece of codfish coming out of the ocean, and that trilogy right there, essentially, you're good for a day. And this is how we're supposed to live every day. So the problem is that as we've moved away from the ocean, to give you just an idea, the amount of codfish that we would need to eat just to sort of, suffice what our thyroid needs every day, on a monthly basis, you'd have to eat 15 pounds of cod. Okay. So unfortunately, that's not very realistic in our society or with our nutrition and our diet the way it is today. So, but it's critical that we have iodide to enter into our system, and we do need to ingest it, and we need to ingest it at a microdosing level, not a massive dosing level. And I believe this is sort of a really good place to start. So now we understand that our body is going to try and take it in any way it can. Now let's spend just a minute on what I refer to as the elemental trinity of iodine in our body.
Mr. D.
You have to have it right now. It's in all of us, or we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be alive. So that's also something that we're sort of not told in nutrition schools or in medical schools. So from an elemental perspective, we know it's needed. They've done the research. And from a very, very simple perspective, when we ingest iodide into our body in a pure form, it is actually processed in our stomach, and two magical things happen there. One of them is that the iodide, a small amount, gets converted into another form, which is called molecular iodine. That's nature's finest antiviral. It's what the medical community uses. We're very familiar with molecular iodine. That is the killing power of iodine is in that form called molecular iodine. And it only gets produced from iodide in our stomach. So with that process happening, now you have two forms of iodine that are entering into our system. We have molecular iodine, and we have iodide that's now in our bloodstream. Every 16 to 18 minutes, all of our blood passes it by our thyroid. Our thyroid only has one job: to remove the iodide out of our bloodstream, a certain portion of it, and turn it into atomic iodine, a third form of iodine species. And that atomic iodine is attached to the T3, T4 hormones. The 3 and the 4 are atomic iodine molecules. Now you have that elemental trinity of the 3 different forms of iodine running through your bloodstream: iodide, molecular iodine, and atomic iodine in the hormones. They're all going into one direction to go towards a cell. And they each have different functions from, direction. T3 directs what the cell is supposed to do in the nucleus. We have molecular iodine that protects it, and it takes care of, apoptosis, the termination of the cell at the end of its life. And then we have what we're focusing on today, which is iodide. It enters into the cell, and that iodide is the nutrient to allow that cell to grow, be healthy, and reproduce. Without iodide in the cell, it doesn't happen. So that's how important the elemental trinity of iodine is in every 35 plus trillion cells that we have in our body. So with a healthy cell, you end up having cells that live longer, live normally, and that equates to longevity and a better life for all of us. So iodide at a very fundamental level is part of that elemental trinity. It starts it. In fact, without it, it can't happen. If we don't ingest the iodide, you cannot produce the other 2 forms. The cells will not have the nutrients to reproduce. And on a bigger scale, the interesting thing is when we talk about cells, iodine, this elemental trinity that we're talking about, is in every cell and every organ of our body. And when you look at women producing a baby, it starts out as a singular cell. And by the time it's born 9 months later, it's 20 trillion cells. And we've just discussed that iodine in that elemental trinity is required in every single one of them. So in order for that fetus to grow, mom has to increase her intake of iodide every day. Once the baby's born and she's nursing and breastfeeding, it gets increased again because now that child is big. It's 20 trillion cells and growing from there into an adult. So all through that process, as a human, we have to have that iodide ingestion to come into our bodies in order for our bodies to use this element. And interestingly enough, from a science perspective, it's the only cyclical element in our body that it can convert from an iodide into a molecular iodine. Molecular iodine interacts with bacteria or viruses or other bad things in our body and turns into a pure iodide so that your thyroid can use that as a function to produce the hormones as well that are the T3, T4s. Critical for us. So I hope that is a nice explanation, because that's, I guess, the easiest way to put it on how important iodide is to get into our diets. It is not the species that is the killer species, that's molecular iodine. It's not the atomic species, that's actually what goes on to our hormones. This is iodide, and iodide in nature, it's in the ocean, is our largest repository. Land, not so much, unfortunately. So if you live near the ocean, your fruits and vegetables, every fiber of the fruit has iodide in it. Every fiber of the plant has iodide in it. So the further you move away from the ocean, that process stops. And the fruits and the vegetables are not as healthy, just like humans are not as healthy. So the whole idea with nutrition is to have an understanding. And interestingly enough, when we look at iodide and you look at the nutrition world, and we take a look at how many supplements that are out there today, and there's a lot of them. That whole industry was created from the very first dietary supplement, and that was iodized table salt in 1880. So the difference of 1880 on iodized table salt is now there's issues that have come along as Daryl indicated in the 1970s. They had taken iodide out of our bread, out of our milk, out of our beer, oddly enough, but they left it in the table salt and then said, well, don't eat table salt. It's going to give you high blood pressure. And since then, whether it's fibroid cysts, the cancer that we've been going through, all of these different things that have happened in our bodies over the past 70 years have grown exponentially by comparison to where it was prior to that. So nutrition is a big part of it. We're only a small piece of it, but that small piece of it is critical at a cellular level. Nothing else is going to work at a cellular level unless it's healthy. And that's where iodide is critical. So the product that we're really discussing here today is iodide, infinite iodide in its purest form. It is the only product like that in the market. And when we take a look at what our thyroid needs, I'll give you an example, because people are saying, well, we can do other things for our thyroid. Well, imagine driving up and your car's empty of gas and the gas station is pumping water. your engine is not going to run on water. I'm sorry, your car's got all the oils, the lubes, it's ready to go. But if you don't give it the right fuel, it isn't going to activate and go anywhere. The engine won't start. Well, your thyroid can only extract iodide from your bloodstream. Bromides are thyroid blockers. So we have bromides in our food. That's not helping our thyroid, for example. So there's many different things that we consume on a daily basis that is not helping our thyroid produce these essential hormones that we need. Iodide has to be within our system. You have to have it there, and your thyroid can't use a substitute. And that is the simplest way to put it. With regards to our immune system, molecular iodine is one of the immune system warriors. There's only 4 of them. Molecular iodine is one of them. Our body produces all of the immune system warriors, whether it's T cells, natural killer cells, macrophages, or molecular iodine. We have to ingest the right elements for those things to happen. When it comes to the warrior of molecular iodine, which is critical for us, you need to have iodide. In order for that to happen, you need to ingest it into your stomach for that whole process. It doesn't get any more natural than that. So I hope that sort of expresses the importance of iodide rather than getting into the science and the hard chemistry of it being a negative this or what it interacts with. This is critical for us at a cellular level. So rather than me continuing, or do you have any questions, Daryl, where we can talk about it?
I don't have a question, but I don't know if you can do this, if you can break this down. But you know how you said if I was further away from the ocean, the food,
Yeah.
the natural growing food in nature would not have the iodide. So
Correct.
what would be some of the symptoms I would have if I was a pregnant mother, if I was an infant, if
Yeah.
I was a young child, if I was a teenager, if I was an adult, or if I was a senior? So, because I know that when symptoms, well, first we get messages from our body, we're out of alignment. That's all I believe. And then I believe that symptoms go to diseases, and diseases could end up in critical care. And I know that the longer something persists,
Yep.
the body will knock on the door harder because it's
Yep.
trying to wake you up to something, even if you don't know better. So I just want to know, because let's leave everybody with something that they can, take a look at. Oh, wow. Okay, so it doesn't mean that it's necessarily that, but, that could be an indication. And if you've got other indicators, then we would see that. So
Right.
Can you break it up? I think that would be leaving people with something that they could take massive personal action. Like you said, why give them just a bunch of information? Why don't we give them something that they can actually, take a look and have some kind of a tool to see where they're at or where their family's at?
Well, it's a good way to put it, because whether or not you're an infant, okay, let me express it a little bit differently. Let's talk about adults first. We need to be able to take in 150 micrograms of iodide a day. If we don't, we have serious repercussions, okay?
Which is it's only 5 sprays of ours.
5 sprays
correct?
a day. 5 sprays a day of the infinite iodide product delivers 150 micrograms of iodide that your system needs. That is just the very basic that we have to have. So
Yeah.
when you take a look at the symptoms, well, the medical industry in America, the number one product that is sold right now as a drug is called Synthroid. And that is a synthetic T3, T4 hormone, because the average person in America is not getting enough iodide in their diet in order for their thyroid to produce the hormones. So they're getting it from a medication versus just changing their diet. And the interesting thing is that they're not even being told that it's a dietary issue. They're saying that your thyroid doesn't work properly. Well, in some cases that may be correct, but it doesn't go from being a small percentage of the population with thyroid problems to all of a sudden 50% of the population with thyroid problems. So iodide is the only fuel for your thyroid. It won't work without it. It won't. It can't. So if you bypass it with medical products, then you're going to experience problems. It's very simple, because it is what happens is when these drugs are prescribed, people get a quick burst of energy because your thyroid is also it's your endocrine system. Your metabolism is directly related to it, directly. So we can take a look at the obesity issues in different societies around the world. We can take a look at their diets. And when it comes to increasing metabolic energy, that's directly related to your thyroid being able to produce the hormones, the T3s and the T4s. Having it done in either a synthetic form or another form that you're bypassing the thyroid function to produce those, then eventually that hormone directs what the cell does. It has nothing really to do with the function. There's a difference. So it gives you sort of a little quick burst of energy that you think because you're getting a metabolic energy boost, but you're really not. It's just where you should be living normally. And people on these synthetic products, that tends to go away, and it causes more harm over time. It's like the last thing you would want to do is bypass a healthy thyroid with a drug. Ever. There's no reason to do it at all. And this gland is critical, as we've explained, to produce T3, T4 hormones. The only fuel it can use is iodide. So when you look at products in the marketplace, historically, there's only a very small amount of iodide products that are out there. There's only a small percentage of the population that even use these iodide products. So it's not something mainstream, where what we're doing here, Daryl, is educating mainstream to say, this is something that we require. The people that are looking to solve certain problems within their body, for example, that have looked for iodide technologies, you can go back 200 years to when Lugol was made. They used potassium iodide as the solvent to dissolve crystal iodine into water to turn it into molecular iodine. It was a solvent. But potassium iodide also has its own unique benefits. The problem is you have to separate inside your body the potassium from the iodide, which is the carrier molecule. So from our body's perspective, you're using energy in order to make that separation happen. There's also a timeline restriction versus providing pure iodide as an ingestible, as the infinite iodide spray is. There is no energy required to separate it. Your body gets to use that iodide immediately, right away into your system. And one thing it does affect when we talk about symptoms, to bring this sort of round circle here, is people have been experiencing, because of a lack of iodide in their diet, you've got a metabolic weight increase. That is something that happens. They go in, they see the doctor. I'm low on energy. Once again, your metabolism. Iodide is critical for the metabolism at a cellular level to absorb nutrients and convert it into energy more efficiently, no matter what your diet is. That's how important iodide is inside metabolic cells. So as far as our aging goes, well, the whole idea is that if cells are healthier, they're going to help us live longer. And everybody is, especially as we're growing older at our age, what do we need to do in order to stay healthier? But not only healthier, be physically active and healthy, not only from a brain perspective, but from a body perspective. All of that is actually tied into our diet, and a fundamental, once again, is iodide into our diet. And, the way that food is produced today, the quality of the product that's coming out of the ocean today, it's somewhat suspect, is the easiest way to put it, whereas infinite iodide is this element in its purest form as an iodide, and that's never been done before in 200 years. They've always had to complement it with a potassium or a calcium or a sodium. This is iodide in its purest form for your body to use. And the people that are using it get extraordinary benefits from it right away. So, the interesting thing is when you watch commercials on television and you see drug commercials all the time, that if somebody has a problem, you can take this drug, but the side effects are worse than you could possibly imagine. And they're out there blatantly telling you. It's almost like we've become deaf to the bad stuff that happens in order to correct certain problems that we have. So when you look at iodide from a technology perspective, it's microdosing. It's not macrodosing. We're trying to keep people healthy every single day. There's in the medical community, they talk about prevention and treatment. Well, iodide is the ultimate, let's call it, prevention product, because our body requires it. It cycles it into the different forms it needs, where it needs it in our bodies to keep us healthy. It is the ultimate dietary supplement. And we've forgotten all about it on table salt, because now there's all different types of table salt. When you go to the store, iodide salt is way at the back and you don't even know what it's there for. So this is wonderful to have this time to actually give simple educations about how important the iodide is and this element in our diet every day. No magic, we just have to have it. So as we talked about, the further away you move from the ocean, and that is the largest depository of it, less of it's in our environment. Very simple. So when that happens, our body's trying to scavenge it wherever it can get it. And now the only place we can get it is you're not going to breathe it in the air in a city. You're not going for a swim in the ocean if you're in, inland. It's very simple, and there's not enough in lake water to have any difference on us at all whatsoever. And you're not eating the ocean fish. So the fact is, but we know we need it. So then you do your homework and you say, where's the very best product, the very best technology? And what we're talking about here is the first iodine technology in 200 years. It's ingestible every day at a safe level. That's it. All of the Infinite iodine and iodide products are daily dosing products. There is no other iodine product in the market or iodide, no matter what brand they are, can say that. This is it.
So it's pure, it's organic, and it's non-toxic, and there's no lethal dose, is there?
No, you died from drinking the water before the iodide that was in it. Okay, from that perspective. All right. So no. And the fact is our body excretes what it doesn't need every day. Now, here's some interesting facts. We talked about iodide content being increased. Our body has, the cool thing about science and saying that, iodine is being, one of the most, the most, researched element. And it continues today. And the recent research is really extraordinary because the easiest way to describe it is we have an iodine thermostat in our body. And this was put forth about 6 or 7 years ago in the science community. And it's rather extraordinary because we know that when women get pregnant, their demand goes up. So therefore, the food that they're drawing in, they're going to look for their 220 micrograms in their intake in order to be able to satisfy the baby's needs and what they need to produce to grow the baby. And then it goes up again for breastfeeding when the baby's there. Well, the science work that was done a few years ago took it beyond that and looked at humans when we're in accidents or when we've had surgery or when we've had major trauma to our body. It doesn't go up 50% or 100%. It goes up 17-fold iodine ingestion you can take in order to help our bodies use that to repair ourselves on the inside. So this iodine thermostat that we have is rather extraordinary. And these new discoveries that are coming out are beyond belief. They really are. So to be in an era where we have this knowledge and it's at our fingertips, you can find all of this. It's out there for us. But it's having these types of platforms where larger people can start to do their homework, like anything else, to say, yep, it's here it is. So as far as iodide goes, buy two. I'm not sure what Daryl's sale, his sale is going right now, but buy two products. Try this for 60 days. If you haven't, taken iodide into your diet in a pure form, try it for 60 days and you'll find that you're going to continue with it. And there's no reason not to because of all of the side effect benefits that come with this. Simplest way I can put it.
That's wonderful, Terry. What other things would you like to leave them with? Like, I don't know, do you think we were thorough enough to tell them what symptoms they might be feeling?
Well, you're talking about weight control is a huge issue, massive issue, and that's directly related to our metabolism. And
whether it's overweight or underweight.
Correct, either way, but our metabolism
matter.
has to be able to function correctly. Iodide is critical to it. Our immune system needs to be able to function correctly. Iodide is critical to it because one of the immune system warriors can't be produced without it. Okay. Our thyroid is massive. We have thyroid problems. We die, and we die very quickly. There's no way around that. Okay. That's how critical that gland is. And very few of us know anything about it. So from that perspective, we've got to make sure that we provide it the fuel for the thyroid to produce what it needs to so that our whole body can live to the extent it should naturally and healthy. Very simple. So those are really big issues. And the fourth one deals with children. IQ and our brain development, our bodies, grow until we're teenagers. Our brain grows until we're 20, in our early 20s. Our brains are like every other organ or different part of our body or muscle that requires certain fundamental elements for it to grow, and our brains require iodine. It's simple. That's why they put it on the table salt in the 1800s. We had that science work done. So from that perspective, I how many more key talking points that are extraordinary for us from a health perspective about one single element. I don't think there's anything else in our bodies or anything else that we consume that has this massive impact across the board. And yet nobody knows about it, Daryl. So this is, like I said, once again, part of the education, and it's thrilling for me to be part of this because it's out there. And once you start to ask questions, the word starts to get out there. People start to use the product. And the fact is, we have to have it in our diet. It is the purest form to get it in. And it is, like I said, there's another one. It is the only one that is a microdosing form. There is no other iodide product that'll do that anywhere in the world. So when you spray it at the back of your throat, swallow. That's it. It's very, very simple. And it's from nature.
Thank you, Terry. And listen, everyone, so I hope you enjoyed the show. And just know that our sale will start on April the 2nd. And I don't know, but Terry, is there any chance that maybe we could be the same place, same time a week from now?
Well, you're close. It depends. I may be in Brazil, but depending on our timing, be happy to set up a call with you. But like I said, I'm going to be in Europe. I've got Brazil coming up.
If we can, Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, you can pick the time, you can pick the date, because after people have listened to this, we will advertise it. But because I want people to be able to come on and really ask their questions. That's what I would really like.
We can do that. Yep.
When do you think you're leaving for Brazil, my friend?
I've got medical conferences over there on April the 5th. It's just whether or not I've got some work that's being done right now prior to that coming up. But yeah, that's the date. And
how about April the 1st on Monday?
Sure, depending on when your sale starts, because it's your call. I'm okay.
Okay, well, how about April the 1st? Rafa, how are we for Monday before we leave? Then everybody who watches this show will know to collect their questions from a true professional, and that is Terry on Iodide. Okay, what time do we have open? How about 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, my friend?
That works.
Okay, Monday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and just know this, everyone. The actual sale, I might as well tell it. I mean, it starts on April the 1st, but I just thought it sounds so silly because it's April Fool's. People might not believe the sale's on, so I thought I'd say April 2nd, but it'll be April 1st, the same day we do the show, and we promise not to fool you, okay? Or rule you, or school you, just train you. How's that?
We'll have fun. We'll have fun.
We'll have fun. Thank you, Terry.
You betcha. Have yourself a good afternoon, Daryl.
You have the best day of your life, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thanks for coming up with such a beautiful product, Terry. And it actually is. It is the only pure organic iodide on the planet. And it's not me saying it, it's science saying it. And just know this, everyone, that this is our biggest sale. You can get up to 50% off on your iodide. So just know this, he didn't talk about it, but also remember what iodide can also get turned into iodine in the body. And remember something, iodine can actually dismantle a virus in 15 seconds. That's a real study. But I'll let you do your own research on that. Okay? Just know that we will be back here at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, April the 1st. Okay? And the joke won't be on you because we really do need iodine. Okay? Have the best day of your life. And just know this, we are stronger when we come together. Bye now.